Should you join a networking group? I'm Greg. I'm the Introverted Networker. And in this episode, I'm going to talk a little bit about networking groups, what they are, what the pros and cons are of them, and whether or not you should join one. What I'm talking about by networking groups is a group of people that you apply to, and in most cases, pay to join for the purposes of networking, for the purpose of getting together with like-minded people to get to know them, to network together, and to help each other out. And there's a lot of different kinds of networking groups out there. So I'll talk a little bit about what all the different kinds are, or some of the different kinds. Of course, I'm sure I'll miss some. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about what the pros and cons are, because these can definitely be a great way to network. These can be a great way to meet people who are in similar situations as you, similar industries, similar functions, similar stages of life. And you can sort of plan your networking. It's not just a one-time networking event. It's an ongoing gathering of these people. And that can definitely help your networking. At the same time, there's some downsides to that. So I want to talk about what some of the downsides are, mainly getting into them and finding them, getting accepted, and cost, and also kind of limiting yourself to just the people in that group. So let's jump in. Let's talk a little bit more about what I'm talking about. So there are some networking groups out there that are organized by industry. So if you're in technology, or you're in finance, or you're in manufacturing, or maybe you're in some sort of other type of financial services industry, you can find groups of people that are in those industries that get together on a frequent basis, monthly or quarterly, and join those groups. And they'll usually have an event. You get together and there's probably some sort of presentation and then some networking that goes on around it. And those are great, right? You can learn things, you can learn from other people, you can exchange knowledge. So you'll learn more about your industry, and you can get to connect with other people who are in your industry. There's other groups that are arranged by function. What I mean by function is, like, I'm in human resources. So there's human resources groups that you can join and get together with people. There are finance groups. If you're like a CFO, there's groups of CFOs. If you're CEOs, there's groups of CEOs. If you're in again, sales or some other kind of function and organization, you can find a group of people who are in the same type of roles to get together and network with. So again, helps you meet other people who are similar to you. There's also what I would call like community or local groups. And what I mean by these are really what you would call leads groups. And this is like Business Networking International. This is a big organization that does this, and they have chapters all over the place. And so within a town or a city, you might have multiple groups that are kind of leads groups. And what I mean by a leads group is you join this group, and if you're an accountant and you join this group, you're the one accountant in the group. And then there's lawyers, there might be doctors, there might be real estate agents, any sort of professional services where people have businesses. So what they've done is they've joined this group because they come and say, here's what my business does. And then all the other people in the group go out, and when somebody says, hey, do you know a good accountant? They say, oh yeah, I know this guy in my group, my leads group. So that person would introduce the accountant to the person that asked them about it, and that accountant would get business. And the other person who did the introduction would have done them a favor, with the idea that sometime the accountant's going to be saying to somebody, talking to them, and going to say, hey, do you know a good lawyer? They're going to be like, yeah, I know this guy who's a lawyer in my leads group, and introduce them that way. So it's meant to be a way to get leads for your business. And again, not a bad thing. It's just a way that, people get leads and people help each other. So I think the spirit is right. And it's definitely, not a bad thing. I'll talk a little bit about some of the cons later, but that's a leads group. There's even like job seeker groups. So I know the first time I got laid off, I joined a job search group, and it was HR people who were searching for a job. And so people who are looking for a job, we would get together monthly and same sort of thing. There would be some presentation on job search. And we would also talk to each other about where we were searching, what opportunities we were finding. And sometimes you hear of an opportunity that's not right for you, but it could be good for somebody else who's in the same type of industry or function you're in. So the job search group was a great way to share referrals and ideas and leads with each other. That one, once you're not in a job search anymore, you don't need to be in the group. So again, from a networking perspective, it's okay, but it's kind of temporary. And then, there's your own groups that you can create through your own network. I think of my network as one big group of people, and there's a lot of people in that I introduce to each other and who kind of network just by knowing me. But that's not a formal group. That's not really what I'm talking about. So why do you join one of these groups? What are some of the pros? As I said, one of the pros is that it's ready for you, almost done for you networking. It creates an event where there's people who are in a similar place who are all looking for the same knowledge or the same type of people who are there to network. So everybody's there to talk to each other, share what's going on. It's a very open environment to meeting and connecting with new people. For people who are busy, and I've talked to a couple different C-suite leaders recently, people who are really busy, these are great because they set aside time each month where the person goes to the event or gets online at the event and they're able to network. It kind of forces them to network. It's basically like outsourcing your networking to the group, meaning you're saying I'm going to commit to come network when maybe you don't normally network on your own. And so I think that's one of the pros is, again, if you're very busy, you have a hard time, you commit to doing this in the group and you have to show up, you have to network. So that's a big pro. I think the other pro is these groups are kind of limited in their access. And what I mean that is you only get to talk to the people in the group if you're in the group. And so, again, very busy people or people who are executives are guarding their time. They don't necessarily want to go to an event all the time because there are a lot of times vendors and people who are trying to get their business, and that's who they talk to. And that's not necessarily who they're looking for. They might be looking for other CEOs or other CFOs or other executives who share similar experiences with them so they can kind of commiserate and vent and find out what other people are doing. So the fact that the groups are closed helps filter and sort of make sure that only the people they want to connect with are there. So that's another advantage, I would say, is you're not spending a lot of time talking to people who may never interact with you again. So if you go to a networking event, you never know who's going to be there. And you might end up spending time talking to people all night and you're never going to talk to them again. So it wasn't a valuable use of your time. I think the other thing is, the fact being in these groups adds some consistency because, like I said, there's usually monthly or quarterly meetings or a couple times a year. It forces you to go, but also forces you to be consistent. So you're going to see these people again. So you want to kind of develop those relationships. You really want to make sure you're adding value to them and you're also getting value from them. So those are some of the different pros of being a part of these. I will say, since I started my own business, I've become a part of more of these groups than I had previously been. So before I was running my own business and when I had a W-2 job during the day and I was networking, I did it all on my own, meaning I went out and networked on my own. And I didn't join any groups because at the time I was like, I didn't really feel the need. I mean, I didn't feel the need to get in them. It wasn't important to me. Since I've started my business, I've seen how important the power of partnership has become. So I've become a member of a couple different consulting groups. So people who run their own consulting businesses, I'm now a part of those groups. And so we have events, we have online forums. So we use Slack where we can trade messages and help each other out. And a few times I've been in the Slack forum and people have said, hey, I'm looking for somebody who knows how to do compensation. And I'm like, I know how to do compensation. So it helps connect me with opportunities. So those are a couple that I've become a part of, and again, like I said, they've been valuable not only to network but to help come up with opportunities. So this has been something that's new for me and something I haven't normally done before, but I'm actually kind of starting to really see the value in some of these groups. So let's talk about some of the downsides to some of these groups. The first one is they don't just let everybody in. Like, you kind of got to know somebody in most of these groups, and they have to say, hey, this is a good person to let in. So you're going to have to do a little networking to get in a networking group. They're not just sitting out there waiting for you to knock on the door and come in. But again, that's one of the advantages is it is selective. So, but it is also a downside because not everybody can get in. The second thing is cost. It costs money to join these groups, and it costs money because the organizers put on events. The organizers need to get some sort of compensation for their time. And the last part is it forces commitment. If you've paid to be in one of these groups, you're more likely to show up, and you're more likely to engage, and you're more likely to network and engage and build those relationships. If you could just join for free, you'd be like, whether I go or not, no big deal, no loss, right? So paying to get in kind of, again, forces you to make sure you show up and get the most out of it. At the same time, not everybody can afford to join these groups. So if you can't afford to join the group, that's, again, one of the downsides. I would say, going back to the Business Networking International example, and I've never been one of these groups, but I dabbled in it a long, long time ago when I was thinking of getting into financial services. Some people have told me it depends on the group. Like, if you're the one person who's, say, the accountant, and you've got some people in there who you either don't get along with, or you don't like, or they don't like you, or whatever, you could be sending them business and they may not be doing the same. Or it's hard to get in because they only have one accountant. So if they've got an accountant, you can't get in. Or some are better than others, and I think that just goes for any group. But I just think the challenge with that is you're also limiting who you are interacting with, because let's say that in that group the lawyer is a jerk and you wouldn't send your friends to him, but you're in this group and he's sending you accounting clients. That's a little awkward, right? So you don't get to pick like who the other people are, and if there's somebody you don't want to refer people to, you don't have a lot of choice. So again, that's maybe some of the downsides there. But for most of you who are listening to this, you're probably listening to this because you're looking for a job, or you're looking to increase your you're looking to increase your connections, and so these groups can be a good avenue. I would say this is mostly for people who want to be networking on an ongoing basis, which is all of you. You should all be networking on an ongoing basis. You know that I would say that. At the same time, I totally understand some people are here because they want to know how they can connect to find that new job. And once they find that new job, they might be a little less disciplined with their networking. But I would tell you, if you need to be disciplined with your networking, and if you want to keep doing it, one of these groups might be a good way for you to do it. You can also do it by just following my steps, which is to consistently network a little bit each day, each week. Send out a note to somebody who you've lost touch with or dormant ties. Say, hey, we'd love to get together and catch up. Have that voice-to-voice conversation. Listen to what's going on. Figure out how you can help the other person. And when they say, how can I help you? Just be ready to go with who's the next person you want to meet, or who's the company you want to get introduced to. So you can do that on your own. You can do the same thing in these networking groups. So if you do join a networking group, then all of the steps are the same. It's connecting with the person, having a real life conversation, listening to them, figuring out how you can help them. And then when it comes time, just be easy to help. So whether you join a group or not, or whether you decide to go it on your own, all these principles of networking are the same. This is just another avenue of ways to network. But again, you don't have to. You can do this on your own. I've been doing it on my own for years. I just joined networking groups in the last few months. I've been doing this on my own, growing my own network, for 10 years, really seriously the past 5 years. But it's totally doable, and you don't have to wait 5 years to get the benefits of the networking. You can start getting those benefits as soon as you connect with one person. When you help one person, you feel good about that. When they introduce you to someone new, your network grows. So you can realize the benefits of networking immediately. So I hope that helps. If you've got questions about networking groups, let me know. If you have other networking questions, again, I'm always available. So you know where to find me. Subscribe to the newsletter, subscribe to the podcast, check out the video, send me an email, follow me on LinkedIn. I'm easy to find. And if you're having any questions, please reach out. Go out there this week, meet some new people. Remember, always be connecting.